What's up, everybody? It's Pikel. And that was a tilter. Hanwha Life makes it all the way into the tie-breaking game, gets a gigantic gold lead, and then loses. So RNG wins the group. RNG went 4-2, Hanwha Life 4-2, PSG 3-3, Fnatic 1-5. Just super tilting. I had Hanwha Life at plus 600. So, anybody with a brain would see that this was a great bet. I made this about a month ago, I think. And, obviously I didn't have any news about the upset information, but, I that really wouldn't have impacted my opinion of it too much. It would have been an even better bet at that point. And it would have been offered at worse odds. But just really frustrating to watch the end of that. My soap smells weird. So in the first game was Hanwha Life against PSG. Hanwha Life took care of business. Viego looked pretty good in that match. Playing the Renekton into Graves. We've seen it a few times. It's counterintuitive, especially for the early part of the laning phase, but Morgan did a good enough job. Fnatic beat RNG. RNG threw that game pretty hard. But, shit happens. I was considering betting Fnatic yesterday in the video, I guess. Or actually, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was saying to myself, I should never bet that. But I think I said I would never bet it. But, if you told me, hey, Pikel, I want to make that bet because of the value for the money, I completely understand. And it hit, so good to you. Good on you if you did that. RNG against PSG Talon, 10-8. This game was never very close. This was the same composition they ran against Hanwha Life, basically, in the first day. Did not work out as well this time. Hanwha Life against Fnatic. Hanwha Life... This game was pretty close. Hanwha Life definitely had a lead in the early game. Didn't really capitalize on the lead, and then was forced to kind of outplay Fnatic in order to win the game. So it was like a good execution victory. Not a good execution victory. It was a good victory from Hanwha Life, but the execution was poor. And then Hanwha Life up against RNG. This game was kind of a stomp. Hanwha Life got a kill level 1, and then just kind of snowballed from there. They had like a multiple thousand gold lead, and then threw that away, and then took it back. So I think it was like they were up 3,000 gold, and it went down to 1,000 gold, and then they kind of turned it on, and that looked good. And then Fnatic against PSG Talon. I mean, how much can you really blame Bean for this? I don't know. Maybe Fnatic's just not as good as you thought they were. The other thing that I would say is that guy Bloop on Twitter, like the esports quote unquote esports reporter, was saying how Bean looked like quote unquote competitive, but it's like it's difficult for an AD carry to not look competitive. If you just don't die, if you just play passively, people like Bloop are going to give you credit for it. So, I mean, I don't know what they really expected to happen. But that's just annoying when people have that kind of opinion, because AD carries aren't being asked to do a lot right now. If you're out there playing MF or Jhin every single game, what are you going to do? He played MF 3 times today. MF is an easy champion. It's a very easy champion. It's like, oh, all of my teammates are doing stuff right in front of me. I'm going to ultimate. Look at me. I clicked my button. What a beast. Like, it's just really frustrating to listen to. There were a few things today that were kind of like that, that people were just saying stuff that kind of blew my mind. But let's go to the bets. So yesterday, I had a bet on Hanwha Life to beat PSG. I had a $10 on a 3-team parlay. I lost. I had $20 on Hanwha Life to beat PSG at minus 163, 112. RNG to beat Fnatic, lost. PSG to beat RNG, lost. Hanwha Life to beat Fnatic, won that. won $8, and then Hanwha Life to beat RNG plus 35, and then PSG to beat Fnatic at plus 8. So let's see, 30, 60, 90, 140. So I think I won like $20. But this is really what's tilting me, is that I feel like I should have won that bet just from how that game went. I mean, to have like a 4 or 5, 6,000 gold lead and lose, it was just super frustrating to watch. Like, you can kind of see the game turning, and that's some of the issues with drafting the way that these teams do sometimes. And that's one of the limitations of a champion like TF. Like, yes, it will look good when you have big damage threats from other parts of your team, but Aphelios was really the only true damage threat. Viego can look like he's doing a lot of damage, but he's really not doing a ton of damage, unless he's fed. Jarvan's not going to do a lot of damage. So you had the opportunity to go Aphelios, TF, and Viego. They had those 3 champions, right? You had the chance to go anything else in the top lane and anything else as the support, and they picked Jarvan, which I don't know why they did that. That just Jarvan top against Kennen, like, they went even in the laning phase from a CS perspective, but it just doesn't seem like a very good idea. I don't know if there was nothing else that they could have played in the top lane, but if that's the case, and that's a failure of the team to be prepared enough. And then otherwise, if there were other options and they decided to go the Jarvan route, it's a failure of drafting. So pretty frustrating from that perspective. And then, they just didn't really have a lot of damage. Teams at this point, it's inexcusable to not understand how to build a TF composition. You need an additional AP threat unless you're going to snowball the game and win. And you should not go into a match expecting to snowball and win. You should expect it to be a close match. Get as many tools in your toolkit for your team, and then approach the game as a normal game. And if you snowball, great. If you snowball, that means that you probably had 10 different champions that you could have picked instead. Swap out a few champs. Nothing was really going to change. You just outplayed the other team in some early micro thing, not a large macro thing, most likely. Or the talent differential between the two teams would just be huge. So yeah, just frustrating. Just, I guess that's the best way to say it. This was one of my favorite bets coming into the tournament, because I knew it was insane to be listed at plus 600, and we were right there. And like, people are gonna say, oh well, it didn't hit, so it must not have been that good of a bet. It's like, well, that's not how betting works, but that's fine. Let them say what they want to say. Let's move to tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the last group, Group D. We have Gen.G, LNG, Team Liquid, and Mad Lions. And I think people will kind of know where I stand. But you can only bet on 3 of the games because Gen.G, oh my god, that's so annoying. Alright, so let's see. First game, Gen.G against Mad Lions. Gen.G played Birdall in one of their games. I don't know what that was about. So if you're playing DraftKings, make sure that you're not taking a 0 from that. So Rascal and Birdall against Armut. I think either one of those top laners is fine against Armut. It's going to come down to the draft to see what kind of advantage they're trying to create in the laning phase. Elyoya against Clid. I mean, I think Clid has shown that they're much better than people gave them credit for coming into the tournament. So I do think that stylistically, Elyoya's champion pool has a slight advantage over Clid's champion pool, but I think Clid, from a talent perspective, like, Clid will probably be remembered as one of the better junglers from this time period when we look back 10, 15 years from now, just because of how present they were on strong teams throughout their career and their ability to help those kinds of teams. Again, we've talked about this before. The farming meta, the true carry style meta that we're in right now for junglers is not really something that we've seen for long stretches of time. It was more of like a team identity thing. Some teams figured out how to do it a couple years ago, but it wasn't as consistent, so people kind of went away from it. So that's that. In the mid lane, BDD against Humanoid. BDD is just a straight up better player. If they give away TF to Humanoid, it's because they should have some way to beat it in the laning phase. If they just give it away and play some generic mid laner, then that would be a mistake on Gen G's part. People are kind of wising up. People are catching on that, you know, TF has its weaknesses. You need to play around those weaknesses. And then in the bot lane, Carzzy and Kaiser against Ruler and Life. Ruler and Life are just better than Carzzy and Kaiser. But again, stylistically, I think Carzzy and Kaiser are more likely to play something for like this extremely early game, and Gen G could always give themselves the ability to outscale through the draft, which is going to make it look like Mad Lions has the advantage in the laning phase, but unless they're able to get some kills or take the bot tower and create a couple thousand gold lead, then Gen G should be in the better position there. So I'm on Gen G. I can't bet on it. If I could, I would. But I can't because New Jersey. Next game, LNG against Team Liquid. So LNG's at minus 250, Team Liquid at plus 175. Okay, so let's go lane by lane. Ale against Alfari. I think that it is very possible that we get two carry-style champions in the top lane, which would be... it increases the volatility of the matchup. I don't think that either top laner is significantly better than the other. Some people might want to say that Ale is better than Alfari, but similar champion pool, similar playstyle, similar mechanical ability. I'm not the biggest fan of Alfari in the world, but I know that people are just going to give Ale way too much credit for their performance so far. In the jungle, we have Tarzan against Santorin. Tarzan's the better player. Santorin does have some champions that would be interesting to see come out in this game, and in the multiple games that they're playing tomorrow. I'm hopeful that Team Liquid would be able to draft well, knowing that Tarzan's probably more likely to go for like a Jarvan or something like that. It's going to be a champion that's more similar to that probably. I don't think that we've seen any reason to think that's not going to be the case. Let me see if I can find the first matchup between them. Team Liquid against LNG. Pick ban. Whoops. Day 2. Not sure why I clicked day 7 after saying day 2. Alright, so Viego. We can easily see the Viego tomorrow. Team Liquid's team composition was a little difficult to pull off. Got counterpicked in the top lane. I think they'll pick a better matchup for top. That'll probably be the focus of the draft tomorrow. And then in the bot lane, I think that in the mid lane, I think that Jensen can beat Icon. Icon is a good player, not a great player. Jensen's good enough to compete with them. It'll probably come down to draft. And then Tactical and Core JJ against Light and Nawandi. I think that Core JJ is the best player out of all 4 of them. And then I think that Team Liquid will probably go for more of an early game in the bot lane. Like maybe they can get a Kalista, Draven, or Lucian and try to play around that. I think that would be a pretty smart thing to do. LNG will most likely be the blue side, so Team Liquid will have a better time counter-picking top lane and looking for counter-picks in general. So I think that I do want to bet on Team Liquid at plus 175. Then we have Gen G against LNG. I'm on Gen G. I think that in the top lane, Rascal and Birdall are both good enough to compete with someone like Ale in the top lane. Stylistically, Ale does have a slight advantage probably, but that's because of the champions that they're playing, not their ability. like Rascal and Birdall can play those types of champions. They just don't as often. In the jungle, Clid against Tarzan, we've seen Clid go toe to toe with Tarzan, and it's fine. It's not that I don't think LNG can win. It's just I think that it's not that I think LNG cannot win. I think that Genji is just a better team. So that's that. In the mid lane, BDD against Icon. BDD is better than Icon. And then the bot lane, Ruler in Life against Light and Elwandi. The Genji's bot lane is better. If LNG pulls this one off and makes it go 1-1 in the group, that's fine. I mean, that's easily within the range of outcomes, but I do prefer the Genji side. I'd bet on it if I could, but I can't because New Jersey. In the next match, Mad Lions against Team Liquid. So Team Liquid was able to pull off the upset on day one. I had that pick. Let's go back and remember what happened. All right, so we had Alfari on the Camille. Mad Lions was able to get the counter pick with the Jax. Didn't do anything with it. Santorin had a good game on the Xin Zhao against Jarvan. I think it's more likely that we see a Viego tomorrow out of Elyoya than Jarvan, because this is probably going to stick out in their head as like, oh yeah, Jarvan's bad. But some teams have shown that Jarvan can be okay in certain compositions. I don't think the Jarvan plus TF is specifically very good, because you're really asking a lot out of your top lane and your AD carry from a damage perspective. In the mid lane, Jensen against Humanoid. That might be a reason to give away the TF. Just let Mad Lions take TF, pick the LeBlanc, or you force them to ban out the LeBlanc. So more draft pressure. Team Liquid's going to have more draft pressure than Mad Lions, because they're threatening a counter pick with Jensen, they're threatening a counter pick with Alfari. And then tactically, Core JJ against Karzi and Kaiser. Again, I think Core JJ is the best player out of all four of them. I think that it's a pretty volatile matchup. Like when I try to imagine this game 8 minutes in, I think that Tactical could be left alone in the bot lane pretty often, and then get dove by Karzi, Kaiser. Team Liquid goes for a Rift Herald. Mad Lions goes for a dive in the bot lane. Actually, I guess it's less likely because Team Liquid's probably going to be red side. So since they're red side, they get the additional draft pressure. They get the potential top counter, potential mid counter. And the red team is really the one that's more likely to give up the Herald and dive bot lane. So maybe we'll see something like that tomorrow. But I'm taking Team Liquid again there. And then we have Team Liquid against Genji. So Rascal and Birdall against Alfari. Alfari has the better side for the draft. Like you're more likely to get a positive matchup for Alfari. In the jungle, Santorin against Clid. They are somewhat similar players. I think that Clid's just a better player overall. BDD against Jensen. I think that BDD is the better player. I don't think that BDD is likely going to pick a champion that like creates a ton of pressure in the mid lane. I think that they'll probably just go even in mid lane and then try to create an advantage somewhere else in the map. And then in the bot lane, we have Ruler in Life against Tactical and Core JJ. And I think that that's a big not a mismatch, but that's a big potential problem for Team Liquid, because the types, basically, Ruler and Core JJ were on the same championship team, I believe. And the playstyle that they're trying to make Tactical do is like copy Ruler. And it's tough to take the knockoff and beat the original. So, theoretically, you can get a good champion matchup in the bot lane, maybe get the more aggressive side of the draft, and then play around that, try to stomp out Genji in the bot lane, because that really is the heart and soul of their team. But do I expect Team Liquid to actively go for that type of composition and execute it correctly in the game without some counterplay from Genji? Not really. So again, like, I'm on Genji. I think that it's possible for Team Liquid it's possible for them to come out and 3-0 tomorrow. It's not likely, but if you told me that Team Liquid, it's not likely, but if you told me that Team Liquid had a chance to do that, like after beating LNG with a good draft, beating Mad Lions with a good draft, go up against Genji, and keep it close. Like, I really wouldn't be that surprised. They could still get out of this group. And then Mad Lions against LNG. I think that Armut against Ale. I think Ale is just stylistically Ale's champion pool should have an advantage against Armut. In the jungle, I think that Tarzan's just better than Elyoya. But again, I think stylistically, Elyoya's champion pool is just better in general right now than Tarzan's is. In the mid lane, Icon against Humanoid. They're pretty similar players in terms of skill. I don't think that Icon is a great player. But Icon probably has better chances of getting the advantageous side of a matchup because, again, if you leave open Twisted Fate, is Mad Lions not just going to take the Twisted Fate? If they take Twisted Fate, can't you just take LeBlanc or something that's super aggressive in the laning phase? Like, I could see them taking something like Akali or just some other kind of, late game champion, throw him in the mid lane. Maybe like a Kassadin. That'd be pretty cool. And then in the bot lane, Light and Elwandi against Karzi and Kaiser. I do think that Karzi and Kaiser are more likely to get the tempo advantage and the early game strength out of their draft. But I just believe in LNG's ability as a team. So I'm going to pick LNG in that spot. That's basically all I have for you today. We'll go through all these matchups once they get reseeded for the knockout stage. Should be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to the knockout stage, which starts on Friday the 22nd. So we have a couple days off from League, but we'll be back at it soon after. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.